ado, kind of let's get started through this. We have today, if as long as we can get Nicole's microphone back working again, obviously, I'm Scott Dolch. I'm the Executive Director of the Restaurant Association. We've got Nicole Griffin on. Nicole is our contract lobbyist from Powers, Griffin and Hill, just doing an amazing job for us. She always does, but obviously on a state and even helping me on a federal level, trying to get the ask that we need as an association for you individually as restaurants. We also have, you guys heard from, you heard from before, we had Jennifer Conklin Smith's our education manager. She is going to be here today to help answer some questions. She did help put together a webinar, which I know we have saved with ServSafe, that was aired on Monday. And I appreciate Jennifer for that, and Renee from ServSafe. So we'll kind of touch up briefly on that. And then obviously last but certainly not least, you guys heard from our membership director, Yvette, which I'm going to actually turn it over to right now. Yvette just going to give a quick, just kind of membership update and some things and some materials. So Yvette, back to you. Did I lose you, Yvette?
Can you hear me, Scott?
I can hear you now, yep.
Okay, sorry. I just had to get back on there, and not sure I can get my camera back, but you guys might not want to see me that much this morning, so it's all good. So yes, wanted to give a little bit of a membership update, and we haven't talked too much about membership over the coming weeks, just because we've had so much going on. But I did want to start by just giving a really big thank you to our member base, and I know a lot of you are on the call right now. Some of you have been members for, I think I can get my video there. Some of you have been members for many years. Others may have just joined recently, and we really appreciate having you as members. One of the things I do want to mention is that all of the work that we do as a CRA, we cannot do without our members. You know, especially in this time right now, but you know, even all throughout the year, what we do as a CRA, our team, our staff, our partners that we work with, everything that we do because of our members, and we can't do without our members. So I just wanted to start by giving a really big thank you to our members this morning. I wanted to talk about some healthcare offerings, and we have sent some of this information out by email, and we've posted on our social media. This is available. These are some programs that are available to you now as members, and the ones that I want to discuss right now came to us through our partnership with United Healthcare. These were programs that they were working really hard to get released to our member base. However, given the situation that we're in now, United Healthcare was able to work with their partners to get these products available sooner. So you may have seen us put this out, but I thought these were really important benefits to communicate out to you. The first is the pharmacy discount cards. This is actually through Optum Health. And these are, it's not an insurance program, it's a pharmacy discount card, very easy to use, it's free. All you do is you sign up on the website, you get the card, the pharmacy card, you can share it with your staff. There's no charge to your staff, no charge to you, nothing to sign up for. It's really easy, a really great program. It offers discounts on prescriptions. Again, you know, as an industry, it's a little difficult for some restaurants, especially smaller restaurants, to offer health insurance to staff. So this is one product that you can offer out to your members and out to your staff. And I will say, this is a product that is available to members. However, I don't think, because this goes through the National Restaurant Association, that they're really confirming whether or not you're a member, just because there's so many staff. They can't really confirm that. So I would actually, whether you're a member or non-member, go to this site and get these cards and share them with your staff. We will share it on our social media again, but you can also email me at info@ctrestaurant.org to get more info on that. Likewise, there's a telemedicine option. You've been hearing a lot about telemed. We do have this available. Again, this is through our partnership with Healthiest You. And it allows excellent pricing on this. You do have to sign up. We will share the link to sign up for that, but this allows telemed appointments for general medicine, mental health, dermatology, back pain, as well as expert medical opinion. So again, another great way, especially in this time right now, if you have a staff person who doesn't want to leave their home or possibly go somewhere where they might be put at risk. So take advantage of the telemedicine option. And then there are also home testing kits that are available, and that is for a range of kits, not COVID testing kits. These would be, let's see if I can tell you, women's health, men's health, sexual health, and wellness. So take a look at those options that are available to you now as far as healthcare. There also is an Active Minds mental health survey that we shared on our social media. I do encourage everybody to go and fill out that survey. In our partnership with Active Minds, we're just trying to learn more about and respond to the mental health challenges and needs that you face in the workplace. As we know, mental health is something that we are very mindful of in our industry. It's something that has impacted us in a difficult way. So if you can submit that survey, that would be great. I did also want to just mention, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but if you are a member of the CRA, you have dual membership in the National Restaurant Association. And I wanted to mention that because you hear us, Scott is giving updates, or you've heard us over the past weeks. A lot of what we're updating you on is things that are coming to us, whether it's relief options or just other updates. Even you just heard me mention some of the health options that we have available that come through the National Restaurant Association. If you're a member in the CRA, you're also a member of the National Restaurant Association. Email me if you have more questions about what that looks like or what benefits you have through National, but you are a member of the National Restaurant Association if you're a member of the CRA. And finally, allied members, if you're on the call today, we do want to start communicating if you have any sort of promotions or products or services that you're offering out to restaurant members right now that we can share. Please send those to me. You can send it to info@ctrestaurant.org. We want to make sure that our restaurant members are aware of the products and services that our allied members have available right now. Or if you're doing something in the community that's really making a difference, please send that to me at info@ctrestaurant.org. That's all I have today for membership, Scott. So we'll turn it over. I'm not sure if it's you or if Jennifer's coming on next for ServSafe.
Yeah, no, thanks, Yvette. Just to reiterate Yvette's point for our members, and just thank you guys so much for the support. Our association would not exist, and we wouldn't be able to fight the way that we are without your support. We understand what you guys are going through right now, but it means a lot for the support we've had as we continue to try to grow our association and be that voice. As well as we continue to work with the National Restaurant Association and continue to push on a federal level, which I'll get into in a second. The only other kind of update besides the membership side is on the ServSafe piece. We had the call on Monday. I just wanted to kind of reiterate a couple things that are going on, but ServSafe has produced 2 free videos online, which I know Renee talked about and Jennifer talked about on Monday. ServSafe Takeout, ServSafe Delivery. They're both about, I think, 25, 30-minute videos. They are free for you and your entire staff to kind of watch if you're doing takeout and delivery. It's just a kind of refresher, to making sure you're doing the proper protocols and things like that for takeout and delivery from a ServSafe side. And then obviously ServSafe Food Handler. A lot of you guys obviously know the ServSafe Manager program, the mandates in our state, but ServSafe Food Handler, actually in some other states, almost all restaurant employees have to have this. I will say I believe it's about a $40 product typically. ServSafe is offering it free right now. And it was supposed to be offered free through the end of today, end of April. They just extended that through May. So if you've got some downtime or your staff or whatever else, obviously Food Handler is not to the level of a full day class like the manager program. In the testing piece, it is more of an online, I believe it's a couple hours. You take the test and you have that certification as well. It doesn't hurt to get it. At the same time, just continues to educate yourself and educate your employees on best practices as we continue to move forward, which I'll get into a little bit later in the presentation about our promise that we launched yesterday and kind of how we're trying to work together with ServSafe through this, because they are a leader in helping us in food safety and sanitation, but at the same time, we also feel they're a leader in safety and sanitation for how you should run your restaurant and making people feel safe in this pandemic. So the other product that they have is the Serve Success program, which they launched actually a couple months ago, that they're trying to enhance that as well as continue to give people within the industry a chance to grow. So just wanted to update on the ServSafe products. I think we're going to continue to work with Renee. The other thing that National unveiled, I didn't put it on this slide specifically, but I'm happy to send it out. We've emailed it out to everybody, but the National Restaurant Association produced their reopening guidelines. I think it was early this week or over the weekend. And that was really tied in with a lot of the ServSafe team down there. And, I think it was about a 7 to 8 page document, very in tuned and detail oriented about what they feel about restaurants reopening in a safe manner. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going through it. Nothing out of the ordinary that everyone on this call should know, but at the same time, I do give ServSafe and the national team a lot of credit of kind of working with doctors and working with some experts to kind of look at best practices. I think that's the biggest thing to this is, there's going to potentially be mandates down the road, or there's mandates now, but what are best practices? What are some things that you can do in your restaurant that are going to make your patrons feel safer? Because that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. It doesn't, it's really not going to matter at the, when we open, when we don't open, how much capacity I can have or not. You need to continue to educate and communicate to your patrons and those customers out there that you're taking the proper, you're going above and beyond, and your employees as well. And we've been doing that. You see that, but I think we just want to continue that as we look to a potential reopening date in the near future. So that's kind of the ServSafe update. I'm just going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to go right into kind of, how I kind of do a couple of updates every day with some of my board members. We have a federal and state. Like Yvette mentioned, every member is a member of the National Restaurant Association. The National Restaurant Association, just to make sure everyone is clear, they represent all facets of our industry. We have 52 associations. Every state has an association, as well as DC and Puerto Rico that we work together with the national. So, as you guys have seen different things about other thoughts out there, national only represents chains or whatever else. That is not the case. Over 80% of our members in Connecticut are independent restaurants. And we fight for you on a state level, and we definitely fight as hard as we can with the help of national on a federal level and the things that they're doing. And I will show you kind of, what has happened over the course of this COVID-19. I've hit on this a little bit on the webinar, but there are some updates. But making sure you guys understand, when you see that text 52886 to recovery and all the things that we send out to you guys, the call to actions from national, their association has been working for decades for you on your behalf at the Hill. Their relationships both in the House and Senate down there are tremendous, and they have such a great Sean Kennedy kind of leading their comms team. And then we're going to look to probably have a webinar down the road where Sean can give even more updates of kind of what's going on from his perspective, but what they're trying to do. So making sure everyone is clear, that our relationship with national and what they're doing. So a little bit of a federal update. For everybody here, just kind of the timeline first and foremost. There's been, I guess, 3.5 bills, 4 bills, however you want to look at it, of how it's communicated down there. We talked about the COVID Bill 1 on March 5th. That was actually in DC with some of our delegates and some of our board members when this passed. That was the initial spending bill. Then there, on March 19th, the Families First, which is going to tie in a little bit, as you're bringing people back to work and the questions that arise. Unfortunately, if someone was to get sick, and how you could going through that response effort and act, understanding that the kind of FMLA side and the support back from federal to back that is really what was passed on March 19th. And then obviously COVID Bill 3, that's the stimulus plan. That's that $2.2 trillion stimulus package that went out. A big part of that was, without question, was the PPP program, which I will talk about in one second. But obviously the initial phase, as you guys can imagine, passing a bill at that size, I think it's more than the defense annual budget. And to do it that quickly, obviously nothing is perfect. Always good intentions. We are trying to kind of fix a little bit of this as much as we can, but understanding on March 27th, sorry, my son's coming in to ask questions, but making sure that you guys know that was passed. And then obviously last week, April 23rd, there was the bill that was passed, which everyone is kind of calling Bill 3.5, that passed through the House and the Senate, and it's a $484 billion additional funding and stimulus package for for these programs, specifically PPP. I think there's more money put into EIDL because we know that a lot of these programs ran out of money. But please understand too that the 3.5 bill 3.5 is, I guess that's what we're calling it. People are calling it bill 4. That added dollars did not change the process of PPP. It did not make any amended changes to these different products that are out there that are available to you. All it did was insert more dollars because they were out of money. But also understand, as I talk to media, we need to stand as one as an industry. The first round of PPP loans, only 6.9% of the money went to our industry across the country. As much as you want to talk about, bigger chains versus smaller, whatever else, only 6.9% of all of those $349 billion in the PPP went to the industry. And that's really the bigger messaging here. I mean, there's other industries that received a substantial more amount of that compared to we were the hardest hit industry. And I think that's a lot of the conversation which Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury and SBA that I think is in this at least added stimulus of making sure you as restaurants, if you haven't received it, please make sure we're here to help you. Let us know what banks you're working with. If you're having challenges, if you've applied, you've got a number, but you haven't heard anything, please know at least there is more money in the coffers to potentially give you that PPP program. And obviously there was some added money into the EIDL, and there's some other facets to this as well as we go forward. But at least understand that was 3.5 that was passed on April 23rd. But then there's the COVID Bill 4. That we kind of talk about on a national level. You guys have seen some of the messaging that's come out, the new text 52886 to recovery, really what National is trying to do and promoting that, hey, listen, the PPP program is really a Band-Aid from the beginning. It was always a Band-Aid program, but it doesn't really work for our industry. And, we need more support and more effort. So what is the blueprint for recovery? What is this ask in a phase 4 bill that we're talking about? And these are kind of some of the highlights of what was sent to the Hill and that the National Restaurant Association is promoting. The first and foremost is a restaurant and food service industry recovery fund. I know a lot of you guys have talked about the business interruption insurance or BI or backing that should have happened from the beginning. Obviously we can't go back, but at the same time, they're coming to Congress and saying, listen, we appreciate some of these SBA loans. We appreciate some of the forgiveness opportunities. However, our industry needs more than that. We're going to need a lot more in this road to recovery. It's not just, putting this Band-Aid on it. All of a sudden, we're going to reopen our doors and we're going to get back to where we were late February, early March. We all know that is not the reality. And we need to make sure that Congress understands that they need to keep continuing to help us along the way and actually have specific funds and help for us getting back on our feet and keeping us, if we have, the sense that if people aren't coming back at the level they should, we need to make sure our restaurants survive. And that's kind of the biggest piece to the blueprint for recovery, is asking for that recovery fund. There's ask about the congressional fixes to the PPP program. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit in a second, but that's part of the blueprint for recovery. They've also talked about a healthy restaurants tax credit and grant program. What that means is, if you're spending money right now on PPE or potential plexiglass or things that you have to do to be able to safely run your restaurant in the phases that we're going to potentially go through, who's going to pay for that? And I think that's one of the questions that is being asked in recovery. Yes, we're going to have to get those things to make sure that our restaurant stays safe. But at the same time, you guys are already looking at a very limited cash flow, if any cash flow, and that's a huge concern. But being able to have a tax credit or grant-based piece to this from federal dollars, you might get it later on, but at least making sure they understand there's going to be cost to be able to keep people safe in reopening these restaurants in all facets. And then obviously the unemployment insurance, it's talked about on a state level. It's talked about on a federal level. We're not going to stop talking about it, of making sure, unfortunately, in our state alone, we let 89,000 people are either laid off or furloughed in our industry, specifically making sure that as an employer, you are protected, not only right now with credit and merit ratings and added costs. We know back in 2008 or other things that have happened and how it's affected Connecticut businesses. We will continue to talk about that on a federal level and a state level. That's in that blueprint for recovery. And obviously there's the enact of the SNAP, which I know Senator Murphy is pushing a lot and trying to find different ways on the anti-hunger relief. We're actually, as you guys might have saw in California, they've been trying to work with FEMA and restaurants in the state budget to try to feed senior citizens 3 meals a day and trying to benefit the restaurants. We actually are trying to float that idea out there as well in our state to find out if there's FEMA funding for us. It's a whole nother sidebar conversation we're trying to have, but we're also working with the Department of Agriculture and Brian Herbert and other people here in the state to say, hey, are there dollars out there? Can we potentially use our restaurants to provide meals to not only the senior citizens, but the homeless? Can we use farms and fishermen and other local state businesses that can be part of this program? So that is a little bit of part of the Blueprint for Recovery. Another sidebar, what we're trying to look at on federal dollars, where we work with our delegates. Just wanted to kind of give you guys an update of when the National Restaurant Association, if you guys are all members, you're getting their notes and we're forwarding it along as well, that sending that message to our delegates through that text now or, the phone to action, all the stuff they're doing. This is what we're asking for specifically in that next round of recovery. Also on a timeline, people keep asking me, okay, well, what's going to happen? We also know that, phase 3, that 2.2 stimulus passed so quickly, just wanted to get it done, get money out there to the businesses. I think this one's going to take a little bit longer. I think trying to have all parties get involved and what they all want, obviously restaurants need to be top of mind. I think we have some great support from all of our delegates in Connecticut that I've had one-on-one conversations with members of my board, that they want to help us. They understand the importance of restaurants, but there's a lot other businesses out there that are looking for help and support. There's state funding, there's the medical funding and the hospitals. There's so much else into this, and it's going to be a long next couple of weeks. We're not going to stop this federal ask. I just want you guys to know it's not like tomorrow you're going to see a phase 4 get passed. Obviously the 3.5 got passed very quickly, and the reason for that is they were out of funding. But to actually have specific recovery funds or tax credits or all those other things, that's going to be a little bit longer, and we're going to work through that process with federal as long as we can to try to find that solution. All right, PPP. I'm going to try my best today to give you guys at least an update of where we are. Again, I'm as frustrated as everyone on this call as I look up at the top and we have almost 200 participants. I know it's the top question that everybody has. How do I make PPP work for me? It doesn't work for me. I don't understand this. If you or haven't gotten the loan, first and foremost, that would be the first thought, is making sure you're applying. If you're having any issues, reach out to us. We will at least hopefully help you, lead you in a direction to try to find out if you get approved. Biggest thing that right now, just to give you guys some education that don't understand the PPP process, you have the biggest messaging that came out of SBA and Treasury, which is very frustrating, but it is what has come out in their FAQs. You have 10 days to originate your loan from approval. And then your 8-week clock starts. So understand that when you get approved on your loan, if you read on the treasury.gov, you can go to their FAQs. I didn't put it up as a slide, but the answer to question number 20 is, can you please explain the process in the 8-week window? You have 10 days. So hypothetically, if you got approved tomorrow, May 1st, my suggestion to you is to make sure you go to your bank and push out the origination date as far as you possibly can, 10 days. So you'd be looking at May 11th that your 8-week clock would start. Not ideal. We are trying, as you'll see in this letter that National sent earlier in the week, we're trying to get that extended until when mandated closures expire. So if in Connecticut we don't open till hypothetically May 20th, you shouldn't start your 8-week clock until that point, or even maybe later, because you might not be at a fully capacity to be open to be able to recoup and forgive the maximum amount that you're trying to do. I get all that. I want you guys to know that that is what I'm trying to do in my role with my staff, as well as what we're trying to do at National. But please understand at least where it stands right now is that 8-week clock starts 10 days after origination date. Make sure you tell your bank, send them that treasury.gov language. If they're like, oh, no, you're approved, you need to take the money, sign the note today. Once you sign that note and you start receiving the funds, your clock starts. And obviously giving yourself as much time as possible to work through that 8 weeks for forgiveness. The other piece, the $1 million question out there is, everyone has their own thought on what forgiveness means and how you can work through this with forgiveness. I don't have all the answers to the questions right now. We've had multiple calls with Senator Blumenthal. We actually had the district director of SBA on earlier in the week, trying to get some more answers. I think that there's still so much unanswered, and this really goes back to the letter that the National Restaurant Association sent to SBA, really asking for guidance, asking for changes, but then also asking for guidance. So if you look at the letter, it's very hard kind of on your screen to kind of read, but I'll kind of just go through the highlights of it. The first one is what we just talked about, allowing small businesses to choose a PPP loan period that accommodates the end of government mandated closures. Same piece is you shouldn't be penalized because you're closed right now, or you can't have on-premise dining. Making sure that, the SBA and the Treasury can, in a sense, they could change that. And they should. And we're going to continue to push that on them to make sure that this can work. The other piece to this is revising loan forgiveness restrictions, to match our industry. This is the 75-25. In our opinion, it shouldn't be 75-25. It's going to be very hard to get as much as your staff back, in this any 8-week period, because we're probably not going to be back, unfortunately, to full capacity and everyone coming back and having that staff for a while. So if our 8-week clock, whenever it does start, it shouldn't be 75-25. And that was obviously something the SBA put out there. That was in their reading of the bill. And we're putting pressure on them to say, hey, that should realistically be taken down from 75-25. It should be reduced less. Also, the 25%, what you can use it for. Right now, it's mortgage interest, it's utilities, and it's rent. Realistically, there's a couple of little things, but there should be other things to run your business as you try to get back on your feet. If you've got payments, there's also $1 million questions that are out there about, can I pay backdated rent inside my 8 weeks? Does that count for forgiveness? All of these questions. So the other last piece that they're asking for changes is restore the 10-year loan repayment. As you guys know, when it came out of the bill, we were told it was going to be a 10-year note if you kept it as a loan at 0.5%. Then they changed it to 2 years and a 1%. And that's where it stands right now. So obviously those are the three major asks. That's also in the blueprint for recovery, but we're trying to do everything we can to SBA as well, with Sean Kennedy and his team. And then the other piece to this is we need guidelines. The de minimis piece, if you look at 4 on there and you look at 5, the outstanding issues that are still out there, you guys, there's a million questions about, okay, well, if I can't bring back enough full-time people, can I add part-time people? If they don't start till later on, in my 8-week period, am I penalized in the first couple weeks? Is the 25% of the loan that I can use for those things, there's a 25% of forgiveness. I mean, some of the guidance we've gotten from SBA that unfortunately it's 20, they're telling us, nothing is in writing, which is where the frustrating side is. And that's why you need to work with your banks so hard through this process. And they're not making it any easier, but we are kind of being told that the 25% is on forgiveness. Hypothetically, you get a $100,000 loan. Let's just use round numbers. You can't just take 25 grand and use it for utilities or mortgage interest or rent and think you're going to get that forgiven. You have to also, it depends on how much of the payroll at the 75% you can get forgiven and then back. I know it's not a great program. I know there's a million other questions that are out there. If you have the money and you got the money, I see some questions on the side. I know we're going to go questions at the end, but I'll try to take those at least a little bit right now. My advice to you guys, and there's people like, it doesn't work for me, I'm just not going to take it. I'm just, I'm so frustrated. I get the frustration. Please understand that from where I sit and the National Restaurant Association, all of our conversations, we totally understand. We're going to do everything in our power to hopefully get this stuff changed, and also retroactively changed. So, but I will say, and I had this conversation with a couple of restaurateurs yesterday, there is no other program. There's no state program. There's no federal program of forgiveness. The only other program that has any kind of grant process was the EIDL $10,000. That's it. So understand, if you've gotten approved and you got your money and you start to figure that out, and hopefully there's some positive changes, but even if there aren't any changes, if there's a way to reopen your doors at some point and bring people back and use some of it for payroll and use some of it for the 25% of rent and utilities, that can be fully forgiven. You obviously have to go through those details and figure that out. There's not another program that's out there for that. So please understand that as much as there's frustration, and we all get that, please do everything in your power to still at least look at it in the sense of, if I got a $100,000 loan, maybe I get 50,000 of it forgiven to help me get back on my feet. I know you need more than that. We know with the blueprint for recovery, every restaurant needs more than just that. But at the same time, we are going to try to do everything in our power to try to get some of these questions answered. And we're going to continue to push. At the same time, you got to understand the SBA, whatever guidelines they provide, different banks are telling you different information. And that's where the frustration lies, is I get a call and everyone expects me to know. And right now I don't know. You see from this letter, National doesn't know. And even to be honest with you, the SBA and a lot of the banks don't really know how de minimis is going to play out, how forgiveness should be, in the lenient side, and whether SBA is going to get deeply involved because they have to sign off to the bank of getting you back forgiven. That's going to be very interesting to work through. And I would just say to you guys, please understand, push back your origination date as far as you can. If you got the money already, your clock has started, understand that, at least if you're open, partially take out curbside, start using the money for what it's intended. And hopefully we get some changes for you over the next days and weeks that you can retroactively and keep that other money. Because remember, you can always pay back without any penalty, whatever you don't use. That's another big piece to this, is if after a couple of weeks you get frustrated and you say, hey, I can only, use 50,000 of the $100,000 loan, I'm going to get forgiven on that. And then you can make a business decision about the other 50 grand. Let's not forget that at the end of 8 weeks, you could always get back that other 50 grand, not saying whether you're going to or not, and say, you know what, I don't want to take it as a loan. I got other issues. I just don't want to hold that debt. You could do that, and there's no penalty for doing that as well. So I know some of the frustration of people like, hey, I don't even want it. It's not going to work. You know what? Like, just give it back. I think that just from my opinion and advice is to look at it holistically of saying, is there any way to be able to use this if I've received a PPP loan to try to receive some of it in forgiveness? And then we'll see what happens in the coming days and weeks as we try to get some more guidance from the SBA through that. And I know, I could be on a call for probably 5 hours trying to give more updates to that, but I at least wanted to show, the 200 people on the call, the efforts that have been made from myself, my own office, with our delegates. I actually talked to Senator Blumenthal's office again yesterday morning. They're working on trying to get a letter and trying to get answers. Senator Blumenthal is as frustrated as I am, because whether we like the answers or not, we still need answers. We still need more specific guidelines, and not hopefully putting it up to the banks to make decisions on what they're going to help you get forgiven. And I don't want you guys to be holding the bag, 8 weeks from now, if you got approved, and say, hey, I was told this, and that's why I don't have a whole lot of factual information about forgiveness and how that's going to work right now, because, I still think you need to continue to have that conversation with your bank, with your accountant, and everyone else through this process, and making sure, if someone tells you something, because I've gotten a million things, oh, this one told me that, whatever you're going to do, it's your business decision, making sure you get stuff in writing and protect yourself. But obviously, we can see right now, this is what we're trying to do with the SBA. Another question that's out there, I have employees that do not want to work. This hurts the PPP. Can't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you guys more. That's a whole nother part of this facet that we are trying to explain. Of it's helping in our blueprint conversation about helping get additional funding and other ways of support. Where if but please remember, if someone does not want to come back and it's hurting you on your PPP, there's nothing that says if I worked for you and I'm saying, no, I'm not coming back, you can hire somebody else to replace them. It's not a, Scott Dolch has to come back to be part of the forgiven. You have to just show the FTEs. Also the frustration that's out there, obviously with the unemployment piece, that's a whole animal within the PPP and beyond that we are trying to message to say we want to get people back to work. And we're trying to work with our Connecticut DOL and the federal DOL and kind of guidelines. And that's been changing every day. It's a great question to ask. I understand that piece of where that puts you guys, in the middle of this. And that's really where a lot of the frustration that we're trying to express to our delegates to say, listen, we want to our job is to get the 89,000 people back to work. You got to help us in that on a federal level and on a state level. And I think they are listening. They are starting to hear, hey, the PPP, there's been some great articles, CSNBC, CNN, that have talked about these small businesses out there that are trying to ask their people back. And they're saying, no, I make more on unemployment. Why would I do that? And it actually hurts them in the sense of getting forgiveness on the loan. Again, another question that, specifically as we try to get details from the Connecticut DOL about, offering a job and, and not trying to put you guys in the middle of it, but having some better education through that. That is what I actually had a call with some of the team yesterday as we try to figure that out on a state and federal level. I can't give any more probably guidance than that. I understand how that ties into this, but I just at least this is the update that I can give you guys today on the 30th of April. On a PPP side, on where we are on a federal side and the ask. Every day there's changes. Every day there's new, interim final rule changes or FAQs, and we're going to continue to work through that to try to get that for you the same way with the DOL. Because I think it's a moving target. I know, both sides of the aisle want to get people back to work, when it's safe to do so, and we're going to be in the same boat as well. So, so I know there's some other, I guess, because I know people probably lose track of, just want to see if there's any other specific, PPP questions that you guys have. I know there was one about, can you put yourself as an owner on PPP? I believe that you can, but obviously you got to work through your bank based on the salary has to be under $100,000 and how that kind of works. The same way when people ask about unemployment, if I'm self-employed, there's been some other details that have come out with that as an opportunity. So please continue to look into all that. Ask your individual questions to us. We will try to lead you down a path to try to help you as much as possible on your road to recovery. So I kind of leave it there. Obviously have a shot here of our delegates. I definitely want to thank Senator Blumenthal for the webinar we had last week. He's actually asked for another one as we continue to move forward and get some more updates from the federal side that we'll work through. Senator Murphy, very similar to some of the calls we've had with him. And then obviously our 5 representatives, different conversations we've had in their districts. If you have relationships individually with any of them, I give you an open, if you need some notes or whatever else, but to know what our asks are on a federal level, it's that blueprint for recovery, it's the fixes to the PPP, and additional, pieces that we have to make sure that every single one of our delegates on this screen understands the dire situation you guys are in. I'm trying to have a conversation with the help of Nicole and Dan Miser, our chairman, every day in different capacities, whether it's through email, text, call, to try to let them know, hey, where are we, what's going on? And they're kind of asking us as well. So we'll continue that. I just want you guys to know that that's, an ask that I ask of each of you guys. Hey, what can I do? How does this help? I mean, they need to understand, they do understand, but when you can tell that heartwarming individual story about your restaurant and how it's affecting you, or how PPP doesn't work, or, I offered 10 jobs back and only 2 of them are coming back. The other 8 are pushing. They need to hear that. They don't just need to hear it from me because I'm sharing it with them. But if you can have an individual conversation with them or send an email to them, or, needing our contacts, will help you. But that needs to continue to be, we need to be as loud as we possibly can. I said this a week and a half ago. Our voice cannot stop being loud in the state marketplace of legislation and on a federal level. We have to continue to talk about the impact that this pandemic has caused in our industry and how long this recovery is going to be, and how much help and support we're going to need. And I can promise you they're listening, and now we just need them to continue to take the action that they're trying to do to help us through this process. So I'd leave it at that. On a federal side, and I know there's some questions on the business interruption. Some of the people had said, hey, what about on the federal piece? What's going on with that? There have been some senators across the country that have been trying to push that as well. They're trying to figure out, I think the whole fund piece, I think business interruption is a conversation that's being had there, and that's part of our fund. If you read through the Nationals Blueprint for Recovery, is trying to figure out a model that's going to work. I know there's different ideas out there, but I mean, that is one of the things that we've tried to express to our delegates, to say, hey, listen, business interruption, of trying to figure a way to get a federally backed program makes a lot of sense. The insurance companies can prove what you lost going through it, and they need the support. Maybe you don't get it all back, but if there's a way to do that, I think there's a positive conversation on the BI that's having down at federal. But again, it's the same way we had that same conversation before the $2.2 trillion stimulus package was passed, and you guys saw PPP and how that program is working. So we are trying to show them, hey, we need support and help. Here's some ideas that we have coming from National, coming from us. You guys have some of your own ideas as well, but we got to get people back to work. We have to get support to help you guys reopen, and funding, and the debt that you're deferring right now and everything else, that all is playing into this. So great question. It's not that we're not stopping to have that conversation with any of these 7, as well as Nationals having with the president, to Pelosi and McConnell, to try to find that solution of how they can specifically continue to help restaurants. So I will turn this over to Nicole. Nicole, can make sure that your audio works. I know you were with your son earlier before we started. Nicole, are you there? All right. I'll continue to talk through because oh,
Hi, it's Yvette. While we wait for Nicole, could we ask Ryan O'Donnell to jump on, because we've gotten a lot of questions on two topics that might make sense for us just to address now. Would that be okay, Scott?
yeah, that's fine. Ryan, are you?
So, yeah, Ryan, if you're able to come off mute, there's two questions. The first one, as you probably can see from the chat comments, can you clarify what options our restaurant owners have as far as offering their jobs back to their staff, with their staff refusing to come back and still being able to collect their unemployment? Can you clarify that for us? And I think, Jennifer, we might need to unmute Ryan. So that's the first question. The second one, Ryan, if you could clarify, are we able to use PPP funds to pay tipped employees, and how does that, as far as compensating them at the same levels that they were at as far as receiving tips? So those are the two questions. If Ryan, are you off mute? Hang on, everybody, while we try to get him off mute here. Jen, are you able to get him off mute?
It won't let me unmute him. Hold on, I'm trying.
So, well, we know we're going to work on trying to get those two questions answered for you guys, because I know there was a lot of questions about that, and we do have some insight on that we think will help you.
I think Ryan's might be unstable right now because he's come and go a couple times, so that might be why he's not here.
All right, we'll come back to it.
Let me try to get Nicole on.
As you work through Nicole, the other thing for everyone to know, as the conversations I have with Ryan O'Donnell is our legal counsel here with the CRA, and does a tremendous job day in and day out for us. We have had this conversation. He is trying to help us to these two questions that you have. I do think as we start to get answers with the Department of Labor on a state level, I think that, you know, it could warrant itself to have almost its own webinar to kind of talk through the best practices of kind of handling this situation for people, you know, that are struggling, that saying, hey, I'm not coming back to work. How should I handle it through that process? So looks like Ryan re-entered. Alphabetized.
All right. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Ryan.
Nobody wants to hear that the attorney's unstable. So, so thanks for the questions, guys. They're both good questions. As far as the PPP for tipped employees, you are able to use that money as part of the forgiveness amount. So if you do decide to direct the PPP funds to payroll and have that include a tipped amount, now of course there's not a clear formula for determining what the tipped amount should be, but I would just use your existing payroll records, and they're not going to go over this with a forensic comb. So I think as long as you have a model that indicates, look, the expected amount of tips is so-and-so, that should be sufficient. And then I'm sorry, and the second question, so PPP funds can be used for tips. That is part of the forgivable portion. So I think that's a positive. And as far as the not wanting to come to work question of that, that's, so what the law says, we'll start off with what the law says. The law says that employees cannot turn down suitable employment. And what that means is if there is no obvious issue with safety at work, they should be able to come back and work. Now, the commissioner of the Department of Labor is actually speaking today at 11, and there may be more guidance offered then. We've heard that there's been some internal discussions at the DOL about relaxing that standard in favor of the employees. I think from a legal standpoint, it's a terrible idea. You know, simply not wanting to come to work because there's a concern about COVID should be based on a tangible issue, right? It should be based on, I think the purpose of that is so that if you go to work somewhere and your boss just doesn't care and isn't following any safety protocols, isn't doing masks, isn't doing gloves, right? Then I think you have a very good case to say, hey, my work environment's not suitable. I'm concerned about going to work there. If you're going to work and it's a restaurant who's following all of our guidelines, all the CDC guidelines, doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and the employee says, I don't think that's suitable employment, I have a real issue with that. And I think most folks who have a traditional understanding of the law would feel the same way. And until there's formal by the governor or the DOL that says otherwise, I think that's a standard that we need to continue following, the suitable work standard.
Thank you, Ryan. Nicole, did we get your audio back? Trying. Cutting you back off. And all right, Nicole, feel free if you get in to just talk over me. But I will try to keep, because obviously with time for everybody else, wanted to kind of go through some of the state pieces to this. So obviously we talked federal. I know that Nicole would do a better job than me. So Nicole, please let me know. You can text me through this process of, what's going on. So how well I'm doing or not doing. All right. So everyone knows we sent an email yesterday to each of you members. If you are a member, obviously, and part of our email database, we sent our third letter to the governor 2 days ago with specific legislative asks. We'll get into the kind of reopening side and some other formats of that. But, we understand that there's some reopening pieces to this, but there's still legislative pieces at a state level that we feel the governor can and should do to help us. Obviously, there's the federal ask, and then there's the state ask with this. We'll go through this is kind of the format. This is the letter. Dan and myself signed it. We sent it off to all the legislative leaders, if you guys are wondering if they had it, as well as to the governor himself. David Lehman, other people like that, to make sure they understand some of these other specific pieces in here. I'll make it easier so you guys can see the legislative asks that are there, what they mean. So we've asked for provide specific sales tax relief for restaurants. I know we were able to defer sales tax to a level right now. We're going to continue that conversation, but specifically in the letter, we've asked for when we get reopened, whatever that date looks like, we should have a sales tax holiday. I know that's more to the consumers, but we want to try to drive business and get people excited back to come out and support our restaurants and also retail. You guys know in the end of August, there's typically a sales tax holiday for people to back to school shopping. We want to feel that piece to it too, in the sense of retail and restaurants having that. Also, one of the asks that's specific into that letter, everyone knows the meals and beverage tax that's there. We are asking the governor, whenever we stop that sales tax holiday, we want to go a full year of still being able to take in that meals and beverage tax, but instead of having to pay it to DRS, you would keep those dollars. Those dollars would continue to help you in your road to recovery. So you would take the 7.35%, but when you went to submit each month your sales tax, it would be 6.35%. That was our first ask in the letter. Also, we've asked specifically on the bridge loans. I know a lot of you guys had the SoFi relationship with the DECD. I know they extended from 25 million to 50 million. I don't believe anybody's received any funding yet. I think they're still trying to figure out that process. But our conversations with David and through Dan is to say, listen, can we expand that program? It is a zero interest program. It can have substantial success and help and support for our industry, the entire hospitality industry, but specifically to restaurants. How can we make sure, whether we look to add more dollars to that and also look to make sure that you guys are at kind of the front of the line, because you are the hardest hit. So those loans can go a long way because they're 0% pieces of making sure there's no interest and there's things that you could pay off and get you back on your feet. So that's another part of this that we've extended kind of the conversation on the bridge loans. This is kind of a two-part. This is a little bit with the reopening process, but we have the enlarged outdoor seating capacity beyond patio restrictions. As you guys know, one of the conversations we're having is what social distancing could look like for on-premise dining. The big piece to this ask right now is to say, listen, if you have a patio or if you don't have a patio, how can we expand dining outside? We're going to look to probably reopen in late spring, early summer. It's going to be a warmer time of year. How can we, if you have a patio, how can you take that footprint and triple it, quadruple it? How can you maybe go to, if you don't have a patio, using parking spots, using grass areas? What else can you do? Because if you're just following social distancing guidelines, maybe you can't get as much capacity of population of the guests inside. Can you expand it? Obviously, we would need the governor's support, which we've started to have some good conversations, but we also would need the towns, with zoning and the parking issues, and you also are going to need help with DCP. That's a big part of this because we want to be a leader. Looking at other states as they've tried to reopen, I don't think that's as much of an ask. I think for us, it's a big ask. It's a big part of this to say, listen, we need to have our restaurants. Maybe they need to follow these guidelines initially in these potential phases, but any way that we can try to expand their capacity is going to help them get back on their feet. So that's a part of the ask. That's also a little bit with Dan, what Dan is trying to take into the advisory group, but obviously we want our legislators to know, because we're going to need help at a state and DCP level if this was to happen, to make it work for each of your restaurants. Also, continue off-premise alcohol sales. We have that right now. If we have another phase of potential on-premise dining, that needs to continue. But also we're asking for including mixed drinks. I know that's a lot of the questions you guys have asked. Hey, why can't we do it? Other states can do it. That was part of our ask to the governor. We're going to continue to push adding mixed drinks, but also making sure that our on-premise alcohol, off-premise alcohol sales will continue through the road to recovery. The other thing is, with Ryan on the call, the protections for employers acting in good faith. The last thing that we need is potential lawsuits. If you guys are doing everything you can to get your business back on its feet, making sure that the legislators can help us protect you, because you guys have enough to worry about, enough stress. We need to make sure, and that's also on a federal level. You've seen McConnell made a comment about it, and others, and the governor was asked about it in a press conference. We just want to continue to make sure that that's top of mind as we continue to look through and make sure we're all doing our part. And then obviously we talked about the BI piece on a federal level. We put it in there on a state level. Are there things the state can do to work with the insurance companies and within your business interruption insurance to try to help us? Because that needs to continue to be in this ask, and understand that's an area where you guys are paying the insurance. You've been paying it for years. How can you help and show the losses that you have and help it get you back on your feet? So those are the 6 specific asks that were in the letter. We will make sure that you guys can see that. We'll continue to promote that letter out to all of our members and everything else. I appreciate a lot of your guys' insight of getting that information to getting that information to us to help us put this together. But that is a big part. This is our letter number 3 to the governor. We're not going to continue to stop to make sure that we are top of mind as an industry to his administration and to the legislative leaders. Moving on. The other thing that we said to you guys, or went live yesterday, is the Connecticut Restaurant Promise. What this is, we took some ideas from Texas and Pennsylvania. I said this at the beginning when we talked about ServSafe. You guys are leaders in safety and sanitation. In my opinion, and I've said this to the media, it is safer to go get food from a restaurant right now, in my opinion, than go to a grocery store and to try to bring food back and try to cook it at home. You also make a lot better food than anybody in the normal Connecticut residents can do in their own kitchen. But we need to continue to promote that. But also, as you guys look to try to reopen your restaurants through these phases, we also want to make sure that the public knows that we're making a promise and making a pledge to not only them, but to the employees. And then on the other part of the promise, it's also an ask of the customers that they're making a promise to you, that if they're sick or if they have been around somebody or whatever else, they're not putting your business in jeopardy. So it's kind of a 2-part promise. You can go to our ctrestaurant.org/promise right now and sign up. All you have to do is fill out your business and information. We're going to try to we'll provide you the PDF, all the materials you can go through, kind of the guidelines that we've set. There's nothing in there that I think should be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can follow that. 99% of them I think you're doing already, but it's to educate the public about all that you've already been doing and all that you're going to continue to do. There's also some best practices in there. that kind of goes through, other things that you can maybe look to do. You guys are already doing that already. I don't want to reiterate that enough, but we need the public to understand how much you guys have been doing and what you're going to do to keep them safe. And that's really where that promise lies, why we're doing this public pledge. I encourage all 180 people that are on the call. It takes you, not even 5 minutes. It takes you a minute, 2 minutes, fill out your name, your business name, your email, and you'll be signed up to take the promise. And we will start to work to get you information. I appreciate some of the help to get the logo created. And I think we want to try to look at signage and ways to kind of dress up your restaurants, to making sure people come in and go, oh, like they've taken the promise, they're doing the things. And you guys are already doing it on your social media platforms. You're promoting how you take care of your employees, how you take care of your customers. I mean, I've seen just some great heartwarming stories of people that are over the age of 60 and delivery to them and taking photos and trying to keep them protected, but still giving them their favorite food. Just amazing pieces. This is just another avenue to help you with that from the association, that we want to make sure you guys have this. A lot of the guidelines and the promise are also tied back to the National Restaurant Association reopening kind of guidelines as well. But I hope that, everyone here doesn't have any major issues with it. I mean, we've gotten some great media coverage already. I have about four more interviews this afternoon. We're going to continue to promote this throughout this as we get to a reopening and beyond the reopening, because it is a promise that you guys are making to the Connecticut residents in hopes that they're going to continue to support you and get you back on your feet. So that is the promise. For questions you guys kind of have, just please don't hesitate to let our team know on questions, edits, or issues. The other side of this, so the next piece, reopen Connecticut Advisory Group. I know there's PPP questions, and I think this is the big one today. And obviously this is going to go a little over an hour. We're already, about 70 minutes in, but there's a lot of important information we haven't really talked in 2 weeks. And I really wanted to go through everything that we've been doing, and we're going to continue to do. So understand the advisory group was put together late last week. I think the governor announced it on Friday morning or late Thursday night. We had been working with the help of Nicole and myself of making sure that we needed to have a voice at that table. We needed to make sure that restaurants, if you look at some other states, I would attest, I don't think the restaurants are covered the way that we were able to get. And obviously having on the business committee, I just wanted to kind of give you guys the makeup of the advisory group. The kind of main group is 8 people. Then there's 15 on the business community side. It's 6 on community, it's 9 on education, and obviously additional 10 reps that the governor put on to be part of it. Also understand that it's an advisory group. It's not no one gets a vote on this group. They are just trying to provide as much guidelines as they can and their knowledge and expertise to try to help get our economy back up, get us reopened in the safest way possible, but also as soon as we possibly can, as long as when it's safe. I will say to you guys, obviously, it's really started to get up and running. There's been talks. There's supposed to be a potential update this afternoon from the group with the governor, which is great. That I would say that they're starting to work very fast to try to get some messaging out. There's talks. There's a lot of rumors floating around of when we could reopen. Is the May 20th date a date? All those things, I don't have specific answers right now. But what I will share with you guys is the person that's on that 15-person business committee is a chairman of our board, Dan Miser. If you don't know Dan's been my chairman since I started 2 years. He owns 3 restaurants in Mystic, Oyster Club, Engine Room, Grass and Bone. There's not a better person I could think of. As much as someone had said, I reached out to a couple people and Nicole said, I don't want to be on the committee. I would like to have a restaurateur, because if there's any questions of how it could work for them and their business, they're going to be able to answer it a lot quicker than I am. And Dan is that spokesperson, and he is, someone that I think all of you guys should be very appreciative that we have him on there. And he's obviously expressing his voice and doing everything he can to make sure that our restaurants have an opportunity to reopen as quickly, but as soon as we can, obviously as safe as we can, but what that looks like. And obviously we have other states out there, like I mentioned in the beginning, that have started to reopen, and that's going to be part of the conversation. But that's really the update I have. I at least wanted to share with you guys what the group looked like, what Dan is trying to do. There's no other major details with restaurants specifically yet, but I do think in the coming days and weeks there will be, and we want to share those with you. But at the same time, please know that we are trying to provide as much guidance and information. That the promise that we launched yesterday actually played a big vital role. I know Indra and others and David Lehman had received it. in open arms. They loved what we tried to put together. They had many questions, but they don't understand our industry. Dan obviously does, and that's helpful. So we're going to continue to do those things and get you guys, continue to get you guys updates as we go forward. No promises, no dates, nothing yet, but as they become available, please follow us to learn those things. But I at least wanted you guys to know this is another area where I think, you know, we couldn't have a better person sitting on that committee than we do with Dan. So that's the reopen. I'm not, unfortunately right now telling you guys, you know, mainly things you don't know. There's a lot of speculation on what happens from here. We do know that hospitalizations are down. There's a lot of things that are in this conversation, but please also understand that we also, you know, we also know that we're going to wait. We're going to make sure. Another thing I would say to you guys too, the last thing to this, and Dan and I have talked a lot about it, and also why, like, I was like, I don't want to put Dan on this call without question right now, because the advisory group has really asked to keep things confidential, keep them really, you know, and everyone on this call understanding that, you know, if you have a relationship, Dan, he's not going to share it. Like we want to respect the process. I think that they've done a great due diligence of putting someone on there like Dan, allowing him to not only be on the committee, but also have a voice. But we need to respect that and make sure that, you know, we have trust in what he's doing. And as soon as he has information that he's able to share, he will share it with us, and we'll make sure we get it to you guys as quick as we can. So that's an update on the advisory group. Last couple things I have for you guys. I really just wanted to highlight the Hospitality Employee Relief Fund. We've been fortunate to guys drink a lot of beer during this quarantine, which is helping me through these long nights and you know, stress that everyone is kind of under. But I can't say enough for it. Obviously, I have Back East and Bad Sons and Armada with Johnny and Mark up top, and Tony at Back East down the bottom right from Bloomfield. The breweries have been phenomenal. Phil Pappas, I don't know if he's on the call, but thanking to Phil with the Brewers Guild of what they've kind of done. I mean, a week and a half ago, we had raised about $35,000. But now we've just surpassed about 83,000, I think was the last tally that we have, on our way close to $100,000. We've had so many, besides the breweries, I think we've had over 25 breweries partner with us, and they're continuing to do more. We also have, you know, help from, you know, CDI and HDI and Brescombe Barton, you know, Tito's, the individual donations a lot of you guys have made. Please know that, you know, all of these things that you guys are doing mean so much. We've been able to, you know, one of the highlights of my day was to be able to write our first round of about 50 grants, hardship grants, to people that unfortunately, you know, can't get on unemployment, have been sick. The heartwarming stories of our over 1,000 applications, but to be able to send those out, and the notes that we're getting back, you know, that has to do with everyone here on this call. I know a lot of you guys have supported this cause, and it really something we launched about 3.5 weeks ago to almost raise $100,000, and I think we're on that path with other things going on. I couldn't be more appreciative. It just kind of shows the incredible work that our industry is, who you guys are, the spirit that is there. I mean, there's other unbelievable charitable programs as well, Food for the Front Lines. I know World Central Kitchen, some of the things that are going on across our state that you guys are doing. You know, I wish I could put them all up here. I just want to thank everyone so far with the Hospitality Employee Relief Fund. You can still make a donation /relief, whether it's, you know, there's no small donation, $25, $50 goes a long way. To continue to help us to get our employees back on their feet. Because obviously we're going to work on the federal and state side for you guys as employers. But at the same time, it's definitely been a lot, keeping me, you know, on a positive mindset when I see these great stories and see what's kind of going on around our state, and able to tell the media, like, you know, you guys have been the hardest hit, but you know what, your resilience, your effort, what you guys do every day, day in and day out, to feed your employees if you've laid them off, to you know, to make meals for people that you know, can't get those, to donate, to do all these things that you guys are doing. I couldn't thank you guys enough for all the work. So I really wanted to highlight that, you know, before I kind of open it up to questions. The only other thing that I have, which I will send out afterwards to everyone here. I know there's a lot of questions on our vendors. I'm trying to work with our allied members. I know there's a lot of questions about PPE. There's questions about, you know, on the sense of that, is there masks? What can we get those? And making sure our allied members are communicating with you guys as much as we can. We actually partnered, and I sent that out. I will resend it again We partner with a company out of Massachusetts that can make custom masks. Take about 10 to 14 days, but you can put your logo on them. They're a 3D contour. They keep the mask away from your mouth. They could be washable for your staff. We've already had, I think, about 25 businesses that have already taken advantage of that. You can order as little as 12 and as many as like 1,000. They are a higher price point, between $8 and $9. But please understand too that our thought process is this is going to be a little bit longer winded. We wanted to give you guys some branding, give you guys something a little bit more than just kind of a blue paper medical mask that people are walking in. As you think about the reopening, the other best practices, please share things you guys are doing so we can promote it. I've been going in different businesses. I've been seeing floor mats that separate 6-foot spacings with logos on it. It's no longer tape. The way plexiglass is kind of dressed up inside some of these restaurants. It's not just trying to throw it together. You need to start thinking of your business of, what reopening looks like and how can you put together your best foot forward. You guys work so hard on a daily basis to that image, that ambiance that you guys provide for your restaurants. It is a new normal. I understand that, but if there's anything that we can do to provide you guys information to help you through this process, that's what we're here for. So I think I talked enough. I apologize for long-winded, but I really want to try to get through this whole program for you guys. I know Nicole, unfortunately, couldn't get her audio working, so I probably botched that portion of it. Thank you, Ryan. And I guess I turn it back over to Jennifer or Yvette for any specific questions that we have.
Scott, I think we got the key questions answered already earlier. Again, to everybody, I know there's a lot of questions in the chat. Please send them to info@ctrestaurant.org if there's something that you still have questions on, and we'll either try to answer it or we'll connect you with one of our industry partners who can. But I think, Scott, are you able to speak a little bit to going back to the Reopen Advisory Group, Reopen CT Advisory Group? I know there were a lot of comments here about barriers and about what capacity will be and PPE requirements and all of that. Can you just speak a little bit to, it's a huge thing that we have Dan on that panel. How can our members share their feedback with us so that we can make sure that their voice is heard? I mean, obviously there's not one, we're representing the entire industry, so there's not one solution that's going to be perfect for everyone, but can you just share how our members can get some of that, some of their comments and their feedback and suggestions, have their voice heard?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first comment you made is, reaching out to us. We try to read every single email. I try to respond to the texts and calls as much as I can, or at least try to get you guys answers as best that I can. Please continue, don't stop. I promise we'll get back to you when we can. And there isn't a note or thought or idea. I mean, going back to the letter we sent to Lamont, a lot of those ideas on there came from a lot of people that are on this call. So I would say that I know there's a lot of questions about, like you said, barriers, what PPE is, can we source it? Are we able to get masks? Are we able to get hand sanitizer? Are we able to get plexiglass? All those questions are valid. Because you got to remember, it's not just the state of Connecticut that's looking at this. It's every state that's trying to reopen, and everyone has different rules and regs. We obviously, without question, even on the mask side, or if thoughts are being brought up about things that is expected of your employees or expected of your business, if you can't get it, you should not be able to be reopen, or making sure that's a part of the conversation. And I think that I'm trying to also, and I actually had a couple calls yesterday with some of our top vendors and any allied members that are on the call. We're trying to put together a separate committee just to kind of talk through, where are the issues? Someone just asked about hand sanitizer, like, how can we all work together to make sure that you guys can get the things you need, and where are the kind of the stumbling blocks and the challenges, that are out there right now, and what are going to be out there a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, as we potentially get to a reopening, and what reopening looks like, and making sure you guys, not only on PPE side and what the restrictions are, but also just on running your business. Is getting the food going to be an issue? Is sourcing food with our suppliers, and what's on the horizon? Does your menu have to change? All of those things are valid questions. I would just continue to say your voice is being heard every single day. Every time you guys call me, every time you send me an email, you send a vet an email, we talk about it, whether we reach back out to you or not, if we can get to that. It's all valid questions and concerns. I want to make sure that I'm not putting anybody in a situation to make it more difficult for them to reopen as best as I can. But I also understand, we're also playing into the hands of public health and what their expectations are, what other states are doing, can also potentially hurt us or help us. And what comes out of that, as you guys can imagine, we're not the first state to reopen with I think there's about 4 or 5 states that have already fully reopened. I know Texas reopens tomorrow, and another like 7 states. So, I'm also keeping a keen eye on what's going on out there with other CEOs and calling and saying, hey, I didn't even think about that. Or what about this? Did you find out that plexiglass is becoming a challenge, or single use condiments? We're going to have enough ketchup packets. I mean, as small as minute that might sound, it's a part of a conversation that we're trying to have. And everything, I'm fortunate to talk to Dan multiple times a day in conversations, to making sure I'm sharing with him what I'm hearing on a national level, what I'm hearing with the other CEOs at different states, trying to give him the best guidance. And, I think it's been a great conversation now. But to your point of it, please continue to ask the questions. We're going to try to do everything we can to not have hope that we don't have restrictions that are so serious that they almost make it impossible for you to open. That's the last thing that I want. I hope you guys understand that. But at the same time, we also need to understand that we're not the ones saying, hey, here's our plan, we're going to do it. Our promise is out there, but, we also have one seat as advisory group to try to get us reopened. And, it's still a process, and we don't get the final say, unfortunately. So we're going to continue to push just like we're doing with everything else, and hopefully not make it more of a burden for you as restaurant owners.
Scott, can you just mention again why restaurants should sign that promise?
Sure. I know you guys, I don't think I've had anybody that's read it as a board member outside of the board that I've shared this with as we put it together, that really has any major concerns. Maybe there's some sourcing concerns on some things about, hand sanitizer is one that's in there, but we think, we're going to try to figure out a way to make that happen. But there's nothing in there that I feel like you guys aren't doing. But also I feel like from a media side and communication side, people lose track of all the things that you guys do before this pandemic to keep your restaurant, keep your employees, keep your customers safe. You guys are by far the best at it. And this promise is only going to help us enhance that. So the more of the restaurants that are here and everyone else, like it takes 2 minutes to sign it, fill it out. We'll get you the information. But how it helps me is when I go to the media and say, I have 2,000 restaurants that have signed the promise. I've got 4,000 restaurants that have signed the promise. They know that you guys are taking this to heart. You guys are understand, the difficulties that are out there. We understand the pandemic. We don't want to overstep that side of it, but at the same time, we also are taking it to heart because we want to take care of, we want to take care of our employees, and we want to take care of our customers without question. And that's really where the promise kind of stemmed from. And I urge all of you guys to, as you hop off this call, ctrestaurant.org/promise, just click the Take the Promise link, fill it out, and help kind of join our movement of pushing that out to the legislators and to the media.
Thank you, Scott. I know we're already almost 25 minutes over. I don't know, Jennifer, if there was anything else we missed. Otherwise, I think we're coming near to wrapping up.
I think that's it from what I've seen.
Trying to jam everything in 60 minutes. And unfortunately, as Tyler Anderson with the test, I probably talked too much, and I apologize, but hopefully it had some value for you guys. Obviously, I put on here, again, our contact information, all the different emails and questions. This will definitely not be the last webinar. Please provide your feedback as we go forward. I promise you, as soon as we get more information, we will have an updated webinar in the days to come. We'll try to promote that out as much as we can to each of you as we go forward. But I can't stress and thank everyone here enough for all the work that my team has been doing. Nicole, Ryan, Dan, our board. It's a fight. You guys are in it without question. My job is to fight for you every day. And we have good highs and lows through this process. I'm hoping for more highs. in the coming days and weeks. But I'm here to support you guys. Anything you need, please don't hesitate to reach out. And please continue to kind of talk through and anything other conversations or people that aren't on this call, you can share this link afterwards. Please continue to kind of help us engage with as many restaurants as we possibly can around the state.
And Scott, I think we should give a thanks to, I've seen at least 7 restaurants sign just while we've been on this call already. So thanks to them, and hopefully more will be coming.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jennifer. No, I thank you guys again for the time, and I look forward to speaking with everyone in the coming days, on our next webinar.